want anything bad enough, don't make excuses. You gotta lose your time and your sleep for it. You find a way.
Right, we'll move on. Dom, last thing I want to speak to you about is Anthony Joshua versus Ngannou. I think last time we spoke, we didn't know what angle AJ was going to go down, but we now know that the fight's done. What do you make of the matchmaking? Do you think it's the right fight? Is it a clever fight?
It's a good fight because of the way that Ngannou, did against Tyson. And I think, thinking about this fight the other day, that I do think Tyson underestimated the guy, Ngannou. He was a unit, he was solid. He's got tremendously long arms, deceptive from his elbow joint to the end of his hand. That part of his arm is very long. And that gave him a slight advantage. I mean, even though Tyson's a bit bigger and a bit longer reach, it was good for Ngannou. He got that kind of awkwardness about him. But he hasn't got a boxing brain. He can fight, but he hasn't got a boxing brain. And I don't think Tyson was the fittest for that fight, but he kind of, what I say, old-manned his way through that fight. He knew enough to nullify Ngannou. And when he tried to grip Ngannou up, Ngannou just threw him off. I think Ngannou was physically stronger, but Tyson was smarter, and that's what got him through. Now, the situation with AJ and Ngannou is that AJ's got two options. He's either got to go out there and do what he did against Ruiz and box and move and be smart and not get in the way, and then wait for his chance to drop the power on Ngannou. Ngannou will be good if he stood in the middle of the ring slinging bombs with AJ. But I think AJ's he'll have more accuracy, as much power, and if they stood there for any space of time, I think in the shootout, AJ's got every chance of catching Ngannou first. But if AJ stands around too long, Ngannou will absorb it, give it him back, and probably finish him. So AJ's got to be a bit smart. He's got to box him. He's got to frustrate him. He's got to tire him out. Then he's got to drop some power into him. Then he's got to move off and box him again. If he thinks he's just going to jump in and have a punch-up with Ngannou, it's a bit of a dangerous situation to be. He might have a little bit of success doing it, but I think ultimately that's playing to Ngannou's strength because AJ is a better boxer than Ngannou. Do you understand? So AJ's got to be a very smart fight. It's got to be in and out, moving, boxing, nicking the rounds, dropping the bombs in every now and again to slow up Ngannou, keeping out of danger, letting him drain a little bit, because AJ is not as clever as Tyson at smothering, old manning him, frustrating, throwing the feints. He's not tremendously good at feinting, where Tyson's got that feint. And, I've noticed what Tyson does now. I don't think it's just a bad habit. He's always touching his face, like out of a bad habit. And he's got these little ticks and these little moves, and it's enough. It was enough to throw Ngannou off, thinking, is Tyson going to throw a shot or is he just going to move off and feint? So, it's an interesting fight.
Early prediction, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that AJ wins?
Not necessarily. It's a 50-50 fight for so many reasons. You know what I mean? If you're weighing it all up, if you're weighing it up on Ngannou's performance, and I think with Ngannou as well, if that's his first boxing fight against Tyson, going in against, everybody considers the best heavyweight, he wasn't particularly fazed by it, and he got through the 12 rounds. So maybe this second time he's seen what he's got to do. He's been on the biggest stage already. So I think he's going to have a lot more confidence in Ngannou. Yeah, a lot more confidence. It's a dangerous fight. It's a dangerous fight for AJ. He's got to be very smart, but he's got Ben Davison, the tactician, and who's going to give the game plan. And let's hope he gets the game plan right.
If AJ does beat him quite easily, like he beat Otto Wallin, I'm going to be coming here and saying, are we going to give him the praise?
Well, yeah, but you've got to look. Let's just look from the last interview, the fights, how they went.
Do you think this is going to be a harder fight than Walling from what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it's gonna be an harder fight because my dad always used to say that the man who doesn't know what he's doing is always the hardest man to beat. And I'm not saying Ngannou doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a boxer, he's a UFC fighter. It's different.
You know, John Fury said the exact same words to me in Fight Week, like Ngannou.
Yeah, so if you think about it, you're a UFC fighter, you can use both arms and both legs. So you're cutting down 50% of your game by just using your arms. So, you know, that's so it's getting back, we're going to give AJ the credit. Yeah, of course we are, but it's funny now as we're coming to the end of the heavyweight chase or race, as I like to say, is that what I've noticed is that no matter what's happened to AJ, the ups and downs, the ruins and, you know, the bad performances, he's still coming out for a fight. He still beat Walling no matter how he did it or whatever it was. You know, we had this conversation saying, people saying he's gun shy, and he's obviously not gun shy. He's still putting himself in the mix. He's still trying to test himself. And I look at the fight with Wilder, and I've said this many times. Wilder was a shadow of his former self in that fight against Parker. And that's not taking anything away from Parker, because Parker's only there to do his job, do the training and get the win. So, and who knows, even with Tyson against Usyk now, you know, was the Ngannou fight a look into the future that even Tyson now, with the TV series and all the money, and as he took his eye off the ball, is he beginning to slide? Is there no incentive anymore? Now, Usyk he still needs to make a load of money. He still wants to be the best man in boxing. They've still got incentive to be the best because he's not being revered as the best yet. The man he's got to beat is Tyson Fury. So there's probably more drive for Usyk. It's more of a challenge still. For Tyson, it might not be. And I think with Tyson, is what drives him is the desire to be the best and be bothered about being the best. And I think it comes to every fighter's point in every fighter's life where they lose that desire. Wilder definitely lost that desire to be that man in his last fight. He did, because his acceptance speech at the end, the acceptance of defeat at the end, it was like a man who was just happy to be there to pick up his paycheck. That's what it was. It wasn't fighting talk. So if that's happened to Wilder, you know, maybe Tyson's heading towards that situation. Well, it's not the end of the world anymore, is it? I've made me money. I've made me fame and fortune. I'm set for life. I'm getting paid ridiculous amounts of money. You know, why should I be bothered? Whereas Usyk's not in that position yet. So the heavyweight race is coming to the end now. And I think it's going to be the one who's going to win it is the one who's going to be the most disciplined and who still has the desire to prove something. You know, and I don't know if Tyson has got the desire still to prove that he's the best. I don't know.
I think the next 60 days we'll probably have a better picture of how everything unfolds, and I think I'll leave the prediction till we get closer to AJ versus Ngannou and also see how Fury and Usyk get along. The last thing, Tyan Booth series, have you been watching it? What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, he is a character. I think the more... You know, I think he reminds me in a different kind of way of The Idiot Abroad, Cole Pilkington, and I watched Cole Pilkington in a film the other day in a different role. I think it was called The Thief, His Wife and the Canoe, all about life insurance fraud, and Cole Pilkington was in that as a detective. It was quite interesting. But yeah, Tyan could actually be, you know, not the idiot abroad. We'd have to think of a different name, but I think you need to take him to some further out destinations, maybe.
I don't think people have clued on to the title. You know, it's called Adventures of a Retired Boxer. I think if you look at the early 90s or 80s, I think it was, there was a series called The Adventures of a Window Cleaner, Adventures of
it was old books.
It was, I don't know how to describe it, it was a bit rude, etc.
I'm sure those books were all based around sexual innuendo, weren't they? You know what I mean? And there were little TV series and little films with them all in, and just slapstick humour. But you know,
He's kind of the same.
Yeah, he is kind of the same. But you know, he's like I say with Tyan, I think he needs to just be put in some dropped in the middle of nowhere and learning to survive type of thing. I mean, you kind of guided him through that trip over in Ireland, so. I think he needs to show a bit more of his character.
Yeah, there's some crazy plans. The production team have got some crazy plans for the rest of this year to take him to some random locations. And yeah, thank you for that, Dom. Any last words before I let you go?
No, like I say, it's going to be interesting. 2024. There's lots happening. Like I say, we're going to get to February, and we're going to know who, you know, hopefully, if there's no pullouts or no injuries, that you know, I think we're going to know in February, aren't we, where the heavyweight race lies, and it's going to be very interesting.
Indeed. Thank you for your time.
You want anything bad enough? Don't make excuses. You gotta lose your time and your sleep for it. You find a way.